Outside the window, the world was a blur of gray and green. Pitter-patter went the droplets against the glass. Ritu pressed her nose to the cool pane, watching the tiny rivers race each other down. Where does it all come from? She wondered aloud. She knew the water fell from the sky, but how did it get up there in the first place? Granny walked into the room, the smell of warm tea following her. She saw Ritu staring at the sky. A big question for a rainy afternoon, isn't it? Granny said with a smile. Ritu turned around. Granny, does the sky have a giant bathtub? How does the rain know when to fall? Granny beckoned her toward the kitchen. Let's make our own little weather, and you'll see. In the kitchen, Granny took a clear glass bowl and filled it with water. She placed it carefully on the stove. Imagine this water is the big, wide ocean, Granny explained as she turned on the heat. And imagine the stove is the bright, hot sun. They waited together, watching the water closely as it began to get warm. Soon, tiny bubbles danced at the bottom of the bowl. Then, thin wisps of white mist began to curl upward, disappearing into the air. Look, Ritu, the water is vanishing, Ritu cried, pointing at the rising mist. Granny nodded. That is called evaporation. The sun warms the water until it turns into invisible steam and climbs up into the sky. Granny explained that the same thing happens outside every day. Even when we can't see it, the sun is busy at work. It warms the puddles on the sidewalk, the water in the rivers, and the vast blue waves of the ocean. All that water turns into vapor and floats high above our heads, hitching a ride on the breeze. But how does it turn back into rain? Ritu asked. Granny picked up a cool metal lid and held it over the rising steam. Watch what happens when the warm steam meets something cold, she said. Ritu stood on her tiptoes, peering under the lid. At first, the metal just looked foggy. But then, something magical started to happen. Tiny, shimmering beads of water began to form on the underside of the lid. They grew bigger and heavier until, drip, a single drop fell back into the bowl. This is condensation, Granny said softly. High in the sky, the air is cold. When the warm steam reaches the cold air, it turns back into liquid water and forms clouds. Ritu imagined millions of those tiny drops huddling together to make the big, fluffy clouds she saw from her window. So the clouds are like the lid? She asked. Granny nodded. Exactly. And when those clouds get too full and too heavy with water, they can't hold on anymore. That's when they let go, and the rain comes tumbling down. Granny turned off the stove and led Ritu back to the window. The rain was still falling, watering the thirsty flowers and filling the bird bath in the garden. The water goes up, and the water comes down, Granny whispered. It is a never-ending circle that keeps the whole world green and growing. Ritu gave Granny a big squeeze. She realized that the rain wasn't just a gray day. It was a part of a beautiful dance between the earth and the sky. Nature has its own secret cycle, and Ritu felt like she had just learned a wonderful secret. Understanding the world didn't make it less amazing. It made it even more magical.